The mid-1980s were not kind to the American Mafia. Federal indictments, wiretaps, and undercover agents had chipped away at the mob's once impenetrable armor. But despite the FBI's growing presence, the Mafia still ruled the streets of New York with an iron grip. At the top of the Gambino crime family, the most powerful of the five families, sat Paul Castellano, a man both feared and despised. Unlike his predecessor, Carlo Gambino, who quietly commanded respect, Castellano was flashy in his own way. Not in his wardrobe, but in his arrogance. He lived in a Staten Island mansion so opulent it earned the nickname the White House. He surrounded himself with luxury, feasting on gourmet meals while forbidding his men from eating garlic and pasta in his presence because he considered it peasant food. To Castellano, the Mafia wasn't just about extortion, racketeering, and gambling. He envisioned it as a corporation, focusing on white-collar crimes, construction deals, and labor rackets. But this corporate mindset created friction. Many old-school mobsters, including a rising star named John Gotti, saw Castellano as weak, detached from the streets and blind to the growing resentment brewing beneath him. Gotti was everything Castellano was not. He was street-smart, charismatic, and respected by the rank-and-file mobsters who lived and bled in the neighborhoods. While Castellano distanced himself, Gotti mingled with the people, shaking hands, throwing cash around, and earning the nickname the People's Boss. But their rivalry was more than a clash of personalities. Castellano had started questioning Gotti's loyalty after discovering that Gotti and his crew were dealing heroin, something Castellano strictly forbade. Rumors spread that Castellano was planning to have Gotti killed for defying him. For Gotti, this was the final straw. He wasn't about to wait around for Castellano to make the first move. If anyone was going to die, it wouldn't be him. In late 1985, Gotti began quietly assembling a team of loyal allies. Sammy the Bull Gravano, Frank DeChico, Joseph Piney Armone. These men were hardened killers, and they understood the risk. Killing a sitting Mafia boss without approval from the Mafia Commission was punishable by death. But Gotti was bold. He believed that Castellano's unpopularity would work in his favor. Other families might not mourn his loss. And within the Gambinos, plenty of soldiers were eager for change. The target was set. The place: Sparks Steakhouse, a Manhattan landmark where Castellano had a dinner meeting scheduled with his underboss, Thomas Bellotti. The date: December 16, 1985. That evening, New York was wrapped in a bitter winter chill. Christmas lights blinked across Manhattan, the streets buzzing with holiday shoppers. At Sparks Steakhouse, patrons in fur coats and tailored suits made their way inside, unaware that history was about to unfold on the icy sidewalk. Shortly before 9 p.m., Castellano's black Lincoln Town car pulled up to the curb. Inside, Castellano sat in the back seat, dressed in a heavy camel-colored overcoat. At his side was Thomas Bellotti, his loyal driver and bodyguard. Castellano's mind was likely on dinner, not death. What he didn't know was that just yards away, for hitmen waited. They were dressed like businessmen, coats pulled tight against the cold, hats low over their eyes. Their hands, buried deep in their pockets, gripped the cold steel of .38 caliber revolvers. As the Lincoln slowed to a stop, the gunmen moved swiftly. In a choreographed strike, two rushed toward Castellano's door. Without hesitation, they fired. The night shattered with the sound of gunfire. Castellano was hit in the head before he could even open his door. Blood spattered across the seat as his lifeless body slumped forward. Bellotti, reacting in panic, barely had time to reach for his weapon before the other gunmen riddled him with bullets, collapsing him into the driver's seat. Bystanders screamed. Some ducked for cover. Others froze in shock. The elegant steakhouse, a place of laughter and wine, became a scene of carnage. Within seconds, the shooters melted back into the crowd, disappearing into the night like phantoms. The hit had taken less than a minute, but it would echo for decades. The brazen daylight execution of Paul Castellano sent shockwaves across New York. Television crews arrived almost instantly, their cameras capturing the chilling scene. Two bodies sprawled in a blood-stained Lincoln, outside one of Manhattan's most famous restaurants. For ordinary citizens, it felt like a scene straight out of The Godfather. But for the Mafia, it was a seismic shift. Castellano's death left a vacuum at the top of the Gambino family. And within days, John Gotti stepped in to fill it. Gotti had done the unthinkable, killed a Mafia boss without the commission's blessing, and lived to tell the tale. His charisma and boldness turned him into a legend. The press nicknamed him the Dapper Don for his expensive suits and public charm, and later, the Teflon Don for his uncanny ability to beat charges in court. But while the public adored him, law enforcement sharpened their focus. The FBI now had their eyes locked on Gotti, determined to bring him down. What Gotti didn't know was that his greatest threat wasn't the FBI or rival families. It was the man who sat beside him in countless meetings, who shared secrets, laughs, and blood oaths. Sammy the Bull Gravano, his underboss, would one day turn government witness. His betrayal would shatter the Gambino empire and send Gotti to prison for life. The murder at Sparks Steakhouse wasn't just the end of Paul Castellano. It was the beginning of John Gotti's reign and the countdown to his spectacular downfall. In the next chapter, we'll uncover how the Teflon Don rose to untouchable power and how betrayal from his closest ally brought it all crashing down. For more insightful stories on the American Mafia, like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel.